Welcome to the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast. Here we provide tips, tools, and resources to help law enforcement officers succeed at work and in life. I'm your host, Michael McIntosh, retired sheriff and current bureau chief in the Denver metro area. This is part 3 of our series with Dan and Christine Bright. Dan has a 23-year career in law enforcement and is currently in charge of the wellness program at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Christine is a 20-year law enforcement veteran, currently serving as a sergeant in investigations, also with Douglas County. Today, we wrap up the series as Dan and Christine share how they work together to overcome the stigma of mental health concerns in law enforcement. They'll share the steps first responders can take to get the help and support they need. I know that you guys have, in the wellness program, applied for grants and been given grants. Talk to me a little bit about where those are coming from and how other folks can access those.
There are 2 main grants out there for mental health and for wellness. One of them is a federal grant, Law Enforcement Mental Health Wellness Act, which we don't apply for, but it is available to other agencies. The reason we don't apply for it, it's very complex. And so we stick with Colorado's grant. It's called the Peace Officer Mental Health Grant through DOLA, Department of, whatever the acronym stands for. I can't think of it.
Law enforcement agencies.
No, it's some state acronym. But the important thing is the Peace Officer Mental Health Grant. And what they do is they provide funds to agencies for wellness type stuff, right? For psychological services, for psychoeducation, for training, for all that stuff. This is our 4th year in applying for it. It is on a first come, first served basis. So basically, when the application opens, it's smart to submit that as soon as you can, because they take them on the first come, and when they get to the bottom of the list, if there's no more money left. We last year we went to the Capitol to testify to have them increase that fund from $2 million to $7.5 million.
Wow!
So there is a big pot of money out there that's available for agencies to tap into. There's even some agencies that use those funds to pay for an in-house psychologist, to pay their salary so that they can be their therapist, right? Some agencies use it for wellness programs. There's a lot of different creative ways you can use those funds, but it is an excellent way to eliminate a barrier. Well, I believe in wellness, but where are we going to get the money from? Well, in Colorado, this is step 1, get that grant, right? And then, like we're doing, don't plan on using that grant long term, so collect a lot of data along the way so you can show leadership like, hey, this is why we need the wellness program, and this is all the great things that are happening, but we're still relying on this grant. It would be nice if we had our own budget, right? And then over time, they can hopefully build that into the budget so it becomes a long-term sustainable piece of the organization, because nobody knows how long that grant's going to exist, right? I mean, politicians could get rid of it by next year. I mean, who knows, right? And so you don't want to be solely relying on that, and then that happens, and now you have nothing in place. So just finding a way to transition from the grant to a more sustainable source of income or a budget through leadership.
So let me ask you, if I'm in an organization and there's no wellness program, what are some things that I could do, also knowing that stigma is out there, and I don't want anybody else to know what I'm going through, but I want to get help. What is your encouragement? What is your recommendation? How is it that they get the help that they need, no matter where they're at, whether their agency has a wellness program or not?
One really good resource is It's a Calling Foundation. So it's a calling.org. They provide free mental health services for responders and their families. It's all confidential. You reach out to them, and they'll get you set up with an actual therapist. There is another one, Building Warriors, I believe. Building Warriors is another organization that also provides free and confidential psychological services. So if you're struggling and you're in an agency and you don't want to reach out to anybody in your agency, or you don't have a wellness program, you just get a hold of It's a Calling or Building Warriors directly, and they will take care of you without anybody ever knowing.
I think one big aspect to what you're asking is we are all held accountable for our own actions, and so first is recognizing it for sure, is saying something's not right or something's off, and maybe it would be beneficial for me to go. But what you can do in the interim is a lot of things actually. Self-care is we always promote self-care. That's number one. Sometimes we get so embedded in this job. We're not only working our normal duty 40 hours a week or whatever that may be, but then, we see the off-duty board and we're like, ooh, off-duty, I can do off-duty. And so we end up usually working, between 40 and 60 hours a week. And if that, is because you're avoiding something at home, or you're, trying to refocus yourself to, financially, if there's financial reasons, there's a reason for that. So instead of, taking that extra 10-hour shift, do something different. Take your family somewhere. Go for walks. Go to parks. Go to the lake. That is all self-care. We have to remember that if we're not healthy, then those around us are not going to be healthy either. We need to put on our oxygen masks on, and then we can help others. We are all servants. We all want to help. It's in our blood. We love to be there during a time of need, but we can't do that unless we are at a good place. So making sure that even in the time that maybe you're not quite sure you want to go to therapy at that time, make sure you're doing a little something for yourself. Making sure that Dan does a great, he talks about being grateful, and something that is really easy to do is just every day think of 3 things to be grateful that you were grateful for. Mm-hmm. And they could be simple. They could be as simple as I live in Colorado and it's sunny today, or I got up and I took a shower today. It could be something that simple. Mm-hmm. But remember to just be grateful for something every single day.
There's a lot of studies that show that the single best resiliency strategy you can have is a support system. So having that support system is what we call the 3 to 5, having 3 to 5 people that you can rely on to be your support system, whether that's family, friends, or coworkers, that you can lean into when you're struggling, or that you can just go spend time with to give your mind a break from all the stress, right? Is having a support system. And if you don't have it, start with just one. Who's that one person that I would like to build my support system with? And just start from there, and it will help you navigate all the struggles that life is going to toss at you.
Mm-hmm. What's your recommendation when you see a coworker that you think is struggling? How do you recommend that we approach that to make sure that they get the help they need, if that's truly what's going on? Because spending time in the workplace as much as we do with each other, mm-hmm. sometimes those mm-hmm. things become so evident to those that are around that person. They may be acting differently than they normally mm-hmm. do, or they're just walking around. It doesn't seem like their head's in a good place. What's the recommendation to make sure that we're also recognizing that, and then doing what we can to get them help?
Yeah, and that's something as simple as just checking in with that person, right? Letting them know, hey, I see that you're you're more angry than you have been in the past, or there's something bothering you, like what can I help you with? Just letting them know that you're there and you're there to help them. That is super beneficial. But the other component of that is you're helping them bring self-awareness to how they're acting, right? That is like the first step to recovery, is having that own self-awareness, like, oh man, I am acting really angry. Why is that? Right? If you can get to that point, there's nothing that can help you, right? You have to be aware and recognize that you are struggling with something. Because the thing with the mental health is it only works if you put in the work, right? Nobody else can put in the work for you. Sure, there's magic pills out there you can take, but all that does is put a Band-Aid on things, right? Like if you really want to get well, you have to be able to put in the work. And so just going to that coworker and just saying, hey, I'm recognizing this in you, and I'm here, whatever you need. You may not get to a resolution during that conversation, right? It may be 2-3 weeks, a month later, but keep checking in with that person, like, hey, how you doing today? And you know what I mean? Let them know that you're there. They will eventually get to the point where they have recognized, and I am acting this way, and it's been going on for a few weeks. Maybe I should do something. And they will eventually come to that individual and be like, hey, I do need some help, right? And then having those resources in place that you can refer them to, and just being there, right? For the past 2 decades, I've noticed in this profession, as I reflect back, is we have a habit of, is what I call like eating our own, right? Like, oh, you're struggling. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to handle it. I'm going to let you struggle on your own, right? But what we need to do is turn towards our people, right? And give them that lending hand and just say, hey, I'm here for you whenever you need. It's a really simple act that shows empathy, that shows compassion, that shows that you're not alone. And that is what this profession needs so much of within its own walls, right? Every agency needs that. But we don't tend to provide much of that at all.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's always been kind of one of those. Well, I don't know what's going on with them. Could be home, it could be, but they've got to deal with their own demons, kind of thing. And you just kind of, you just got to keep moving forward. But it is critically important that we start having those conversations with the folks that are in our sphere of influence.
Yeah. If we're going to call it a brotherhood and a sisterhood, then we have to treat it like that, right? You have to treat it like family. And if you see a coworker struggling, like just simply asking, are you okay? What can I do for you? And you may not be able to do anything, but at least they're able to say something to you, and you can help them go find resources, find people that can help them with whatever they're struggling with. Because when you're in the midst of struggle, your mind is not focused on solutions, right? It's just focused on all the stress and all the negativity. So having that outside person that can help you steer you towards a resource to get yourself better that's the way.
Do you find that sometimes folks are afraid of talking about what's going on in fear of losing the position that they're currently in, or a position that they may be on the list for, on an eligibility list for, and the fear is that they won't be able to do that job or move to a different job or promote if they're dealing with mental health issues.
Yep. The 4 most common stigmas in our profession is fear of not being able to promote, fear of getting fired, fear of not being trusted by their team, and then fear of not being able to transfer to different assignments. And those are very common themes across most agencies, right? If not all of them. And so how do you combat that? One thing that we have found is really successful is we have that self-reporting policy that says, if you reach out for help through the wellness unit, whether it's for mental health or substance abuse, as long as you put in the work and go through the program, there's no career harm. It's even in big bold letters. There'll be no career harm if you reach out for help. having something like that is a really excellent way to beat down that stigma, because it's written in policy, right? And so the individual can always fall back on, well, it's in the policy, I reached out for help, so you can't hold this against me. And so when everybody can get on board with a policy like that, that again can help change the culture within that organization and allow the stigma to not have such a stronghold on our individuals. We've had a huge success with that very policy since it was implemented 4 years ago. We've had 30 people, both commission and civilian, used it, and all 30 of them have been what we call a takeoff line, so we can get them the help they need, and then they come back and they're put back in their position. All 30 of them have been put back in their position and are thriving, right? They're doing awesome work, and they've overcome that struggle, and they've won resiliency for the next struggle. The other, because I know like leadership likes numbers and data, right? And when you look at how much it costs for an individual to apply for a job, go through the hiring process, get hired, do the training, do the equipment, to their first day solo out on FTO, that whole process costs around $100,000.
Right.
So if you look at the policy we implemented in the 30 careers that we saved, we essentially just saved $3 million just by taking care of our people, right? Just by treating them like family and getting them the resources they need. That doesn't include their advanced training and their experience they have. That's just a basic number just to get people hired. And then on top of that, you're also creating the loyalty, right? Because now that individual knows, well, this agency's taking care of me. I'm going to stay here because they care, right? That's one thing that people want the most, is to feel valued. And it's so easy for us to forget that piece of it, is to make people feel valued.
And what's great about that is that those 30 people, they go and they talk to their friends who may be at other agencies, and they say, I want to work for Douglas County because they take care of their people.
Right.
And that's going to be a place where I'm going to kind of lay my head. And you want to be known for something positive like that. So I think that is probably one of the greatest things that Dan has done with that policy, to save those 30 and strive, and like there's going to be more, obviously. But I think that really to really answer your question is that you need somebody to go through it and say, this person went through it and they came out the other end, and they are now able to thrive and be a productive member of our team, and actually show the other troops that it is possible.
One word that you use that we kind of want to get to is resiliency. Tell me a little bit about that and how we achieve that.
Yeah, so resiliency is basically the ability to overcome adversity, right? Not using, when we say overcoming adversity, it's not, turning to alcohol or drugs to help manage. It's overcoming adversity in a healthy way. So having healthy coping strategies, whatever that is, whether it's, there's three main components of resiliency. There's the mind, the energy, and the connection. So the mind is taking care of the mental health, right? The energy is the sleep and the physical activity. And the connection is having a support system, right? When you can do all three of those in a healthy way, you have developed a resilient person, somebody that can overcome the vast majority of adversity that's thrown towards them. So that's what we try to educate is, hey, here's the tools on how you can improve your mind, your energy, and your connection to become this resilient person. So you have longevity in this career. And so when you retire, you can enjoy retirement and not end up passing away because of all the stress and the trauma that was undealt with, right? And now when you retired and sitting at home, it all floods and hits you. It causes a lot of health problems, right? So yeah, it's the mind, the energy, and the connection is the three main pieces of resiliency that we teach to help people manage life.
It looks different for everybody. Our resiliency, we literally had almost none when Dan's incident took place. His resiliency strategy was running and suppressing all the other emotions. But it could be as easy as self-care. It could be journaling. It could be talking to a therapist. It could mean just getting out in nature, making sure that, number one, you are aware. We try to be present with people. We want to be intentional. We want to be present with them, meaning, we're not just listening to them. We are hearing them. We are embedded in what's happening at that moment. That gives you a sense of being part of a system, being part of somebody else's system, connecting with that person. And it's there's not just one facet to it. It's a whole stream of things that you're able to do. So it also isn't one and done. It has to be a practice. You have to continuously engage in it and be very mindful of the directionality that you want to your resiliency to go. So you want that ability to, if something comes your way and it bounces you back, you want to be able to take that moment and recognize it. This just happened to me. This is not how I thought it was going to go. And now how are we going to get over that hurdle? Because we don't want to ignore any struggles that we have. We just want to be able to see it and then figure out a strategy how to get over that and look at it in the rearview mirror. We talk a lot about progressing forward. When you are stagnant and you're stuck and you're not moving forward, that's a bad place to be in. You want to be able to continue to at least move forward and still look in the back in your mirror, in your rearview mirror, at the things that you've overcome. And that's what's important.
Great. If there was somebody that was in crisis right now, and they're contemplating, they've got suicidal ideations, what would you encourage them to do immediately?
The individual in crisis or somebody else?
Yes, the individual in crisis.
First would be to what's the number? 988. That's the national number for suicide. There's also another one specific for cops. Yep, it's a 1-800 number, and it just escaped me. There's also the 1-800 number that's specific for first responders. But if either one of those, talking to a stranger, is uncomfortable, leaning into your support system, right? Finding that one friend that you can call and be like, hey, I'm really struggling. I need some help. Right? Having somebody else do that legwork and make those phone calls can make a world of difference. But having somebody that you can rely on and that you can call. And if you don't have that somebody, again, find a way to not only locate that person, but also to build up the relationship, because that's, again, going to be one of the best things that's going to help you overcome any crisis. But as an individual, like if you were in crisis, for me, it would just be simply something as easy as just sitting there with you. Like, hey, I'm just here, right? And just being there, not trying to solve a problem, not trying to give advice, not trying to do any of that, but just simply being there makes a world of difference for that person that's really struggling.
And I think we see a lot of people that come into, at least it's a Calling Foundation, and they are trying to build a relationship with the therapist prior to them getting to that stage. They want to be able to make sure that they hold some type of confidentiality and trust with a person, just in case, hey, in the future, if I get to this place, I know where to go to. So that also is an important piece of this is management. Dan and I still go to therapy, not because, we have anything crazy going on in our lives. It's about managing. It's like going to the gym. We work out our bodies, we're now working out our minds, and we're learning over and over again that we are worth it, and our families are supportive, and we are supportive of one another. So we learn how to turn into each other. Mm-hmm. So before we can even get to that place of feeling suicidal, even managing it from an aspect of just make some connection with a clinician, or again, those 3 to 5 people, somebody who you trust wholeheartedly.
Yeah, that trust thing for a cop is huge.
Yes.
And we don't trust anybody.
No.
So, truly being able to develop a relationship so that trust is there, so that you can get to the point to being vulnerable, right? Because being vulnerable is very, very difficult to begin with for some of us. And you're certainly not going to be vulnerable with somebody that you don't trust.
Right.
And
that's why I usually like those EAP services, right? The employment assistant programs where you call to connect with a therapist. That's why they don't work in the responder profession, because we don't know who's on the other end, so we don't trust them, right?
Right.
We need people that we can trust, and that's a huge part of building connections with others. Find that person that you can trust.
One of the things that I think is nice about our law enforcement family is there's also kind of extended trust. If you trust somebody, it's a lot easier for me to turn to that person and say, well, the Brights trust them, so I already have some established trust with that person, because you in law enforcement have already given kind of that okay and that thumbs up. So,
and that is exactly how we bring in all these partnerships into the sheriff's office, right? Not only do we vet them, but we try them out ourselves, and we create those relationships. So I can honestly say to anybody that works at DCSO, like, yeah, this is a good person to go to, right? Because it's been vetted. I've been to them, like, I trust them. And that is what has helped so many of these programs in our wellness unit be successful, is through that, just like you said, that extended trust, right? If they find out that I trust them, then they're like, okay, I'm good. Then that barrier kind of drops. Yeah.
Great. Well, I really appreciate your time. This is such a critical discussion, conversation. Mental health is so important for everyone, but for first responders, it's incredibly important that we take care of the whole person, and that's what I've always appreciated about Douglas County's wellness program, is it really does focus on the whole person, because you're in a position where it's not just mental health in the wellness program that you're dealing with. It's all aspects of it, and you guys do a great job. Love your story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's all for this week's episode of the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast. Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. We invite you to visit our website at leleaders.com for our free guide, 10 questions to consider before putting in for your next promotion. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, you have the power to make a difference. Thank you for your commitment to law enforcement. We're honored to be a part of your journey to success. Let's elevate our call to service together.